Happy summer solstice, everyone. Let's kick off this morning and look at the three things that you need to know. First up, we have what's going on with the markets here this morning and the bounce back that we are seeing. So Dow futures indicating a gain of about 377 points. S&P futures up almost 1.5%. NASDAQ futures up about the same. And Brad, of course, this comes just going up to the regular averages, and what we have seen over the past week or so. Still had a very down week for what we have seen for the S&P 500 and still firmly in the bear market. So this is what many would call a sort of bear market rally or bear market bounce. Right?
Exactly. And a big question as to where some of kind of the kicking the tires on some of the buying opportunities investors may be doing right now, or whether they're still heeding the advice of some of the guests that we've had on and discussed with as to whether or not we've actually seen a full bottoming out. And it's hard to time that, of course, but at the same time, I think looking across some of those moves that we've seen lower broadly, but then additionally in the tech space, we're going to talk about Google a little bit later on too. Of course, that's a stock split that's taking place, could make things more attractive for some of those retail investors in July. And so we'll see exactly where some of those moves take place. But can we talk about Bitcoin as well?
Yes, we can talk about Bitcoin. Yeah, I'll pull up tech in just a minute. But yeah, Bitcoin is one of these places where people are nibbling. But I mean, that nibbling is very, very small, right? Because look at this drop year to date. And the gain this morning is only about 3%.
This level that we saw over the weekend as well, just on Saturday, Sunday, and that move over the weekend, hitting below 18,000. And that's kind of like this new bottoming that we're continuing to keep an eye on within Bitcoin. Ethereum also, that dropped below $1,000 over the weekend. And so now we're seeing that actually jump back up just a little bit here for cryptocurrencies. Ether holding on to gains here right now. Of course, there is no pre-market, post-market. It's just trading all the time.
Right. Let's pull up Doge for just a second, too. That's up a little bit more. Of course, Doge is much lower. Elon Musk, in a wide-ranging interview, among other things, he expressed his continued support for Dogecoin. For what it's worth. We're going to dig more into his broader comments in just a minute. But talking about big tech and talking about bounce backs here, let's take a look at the extended hours and the pre-market trading for many of these companies, because we're seeing a lot of green. So Google, which you mentioned, Alphabet up 1.5%, Microsoft up 1 1/3, Tesla, Nvidia, Meta, Amazon, Apple, they are all seeing bounce backs. They're not huge bounce backs, but again, coming in, and it's not as though sentiment has turned around.
No.
It's more investors coming in and saying, at what price do these become a little bit more attractive?
Yeah, and it's always interesting for us to break down some of these big tech, especially when you talk about the ones that have more exposure to advertising revenues in times like this, where you see corporations and companies announcing some of their cost restructurings or even whole corporate restructurings. The advertising dollars, that is something that typically gets pulled back in a time like this. Keep a close eye on Google, as we mentioned earlier, but especially Meta as well. Even in this transition, they're still relying heavily on those ad dollars.
Yeah, and just one more group that I want to check on, and that is in travel. Again, we're going to talk more about this a little bit later, but we're getting some new forecasts from the International Air Traffic Administration or Agency, IATA. I never remember IATA. Anyway, and so that's helping some of the airlines here this morning as well.